Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. The John Wick franchise are kind of perfect action movies for our post-superhero, post-MCU type of world. It is an entire kind of universe within itself, a kind of like world-building thing that started from the first film. You just kind of got hints at, then got more in Chapter 2, and then you get even more of that in Chapter 3. And Chapter 3 kind of works almost sort of like an Infinity War or something, not that it's like as big in the Wickiverse or whatever, in that you really need to know the other films before going into Chapter 3, which makes me surprised it's such a big hit, but clearly people have gotten more into these films, you know, through Netflix or through it playing on USA or whatever, because it literally starts where Chapter 2 left off, him becoming excommunicado because him murdering someone in the Continental. It's very into its continuity and everything like that, and it's cool continuity, this whole world of assassins and the Continental and all that stuff. It's really neat, you know. I sort of like that. That was the surprise of the first one, you know. It's just like, I want to see a cool movie where Keanu Reeves gets revenge on his dog being slain. Like, that sounded cool enough. We were all good with that kind of a genre thing, but there's a whole world of assassins and all this other stuff, and that was surprising and neat. I don't know if it continues to be as neat, but it's an interesting evolution of where the action genre could go in this day and age. In a lot of ways, this is a way to kind of make the action movies relevant to today's mainstream audience, and I think it works really well. A lot of this film is just being the kind of sensational thrill of itself. It's almost like people need that kind of idea of connection more than the actual connection. The filmmaking of the John Wick films has always been top-notch. The set pieces, the action set pieces, and this film is mainly action set piece. In fact, it's almost all of it. I compare it more to Infinity War because it just has this propulsive energy to it. There's fight after fight after fight after fight. This movie's maybe 75% just action sequences and 25% like maybe people talking about the hand and like the table and all this stuff. I found that to be kind of fascinating because it is kind of getting into more like, oh hey, we can have spin-offs off of this because of this thing, but it kind of does get you more into it. In some ways, I don't care as much about the continuity because this was so heavy on it. It's probably the heaviest it's been, and I would say this is also probably my least favorite of the John Wick films because of both that and because I think the set pieces, you have specifically one of the best action set pieces was one where they kind of go more inside the human mind in that exhibit while he's fighting someone. That was really interesting and kind of surreal and kind of artsy. And in this, it's just like, you know, they fight in a cool room with some mirrors or like, you know, playing video art in the background or something. And that was still really pretty and probably better than most action sequences. But it's sort of like, I feel like I should expect more at this point, you know? It's like the energy of this film was unmatched and couldn't really be matched by any action sequence. But it's like, as we've seen the two directors who made the first John Wick, Chad Stahelowski and then David Leitch, kind of make their films, you know, between the second John Wick, Atomic Blonde, to a much lesser extent Deadpool 2. We've kind of gotten used to this kind of I've gotten used to as an audience member, this kind of well-composed action sequence. And I get that they are stunt choreographers and they know how to do that, but at a certain point, like, you raise the bar for all these, and like, I think Atomic Blonde was really good at those sequences, and same with you know, John Wick Chapter 2. And in this, it feels like kind of same with the other director from the first John Wick in his Deadpool 2, where it didn't feel like he was as interested in the set pieces. He was more interested in the schematics of the whole thing, and I don't know if I honestly like that as much, or their directorial talents are really being used as effectively. I think they are stylists. They're not necessarily storytellers. They're just kind of good at simple stories, and they're really actually very good at that. I mean, look at, like, you can get through Atomic Blonde very easily without really caring. I mean, that plot makes no sense, but it's like a fun movie to watch. And this movie is a really fun movie to watch. I will say none of their movies are like slogs or bad films to watch at all. They're very good at making very watchable, entertaining films, and I think John Wick 3 is like a perfect popcorn action summer movie. It's really, really excellent at it. I just wish they would care more about the stylized nature of these action sequences, because some of them, like the fight when they're in Chinatown where they're suddenly in an ancient weapons store or something, that was really cool. Like, everything with Halle Berry was amazing, but that was like kind of too short, really. I would have actually liked them leaving New York. It felt like they're like too attached to that location, and it's like, if you want to expand on this world, you can't just sort of expand on it still in New York. Like, you need to go out from there, and going to Casablanca I thought was a really good choice, and everything with Halle Berry was really cool, like him going toe to toe with another like cool assassin with dogs and everything. I mean, finally having dogs do action sequences, like that was the best action sequence of the whole film. It felt like action sequence wise it peaked a little too early and never really got back to that peak at all. And in some ways this film doesn't really narratively work as well as it wants to. It'd be fine if John Wick goes from set piece to action set piece. Hell, that's mainly what these movies are. But I think the problem is this film kind of wants to do that, but also do this other plot. So it's like you're having your cake and eat it too is the analogy I'd probably use for that. As interesting as that analogy still is. The whole idea of having him have to deal with the adjudicator, who then gets the kind of like that sushi restaurant assassin guy, and them coming after him, didn't really connect as well. It like felt like they just had to have a villain in there. And although I find the adjudicator really interesting and wouldn't have minded them being in there in a lesser role, it felt like they gave the adjudicator too much attention, really. And I like that actor, Asia Kate Dillon. I thought they were very good in the film, and I would like to see them in a lot of other films. They had a very good presence in this film. They were able to really bring a sense of the high table and what was going on and how much power they have and power over all of them. They acted more like basically a lawyer, but a lawyer who kind of works for the high table, basically works for the system and knows that they can't be crossed. And I thought Asia really brought that to this role. But at the same time, honestly, I kept thinking of the film like Vanishing Point. Like you look at something like Vanishing Point and it's like mainly going on the thrill of the chase, and this film wasn't really as much interested in the thrill of the chase. It was more interested in the idea of playing within this world while also doing the chase, and I wish it had kind of been a little more simplistic. Like there were too many complications. They're easy complication to understand and all that. It was honestly not that hard to decipher any. I'm not saying that, but I think there was a really interesting, more simple narrative film within this that it just wasn't doing, unfortunately. It was just like overly complicated, and it's mainly more of a simple premise, to be honest. And I didn't really like the sushi chef guy, Mark Dacascos. He had an interesting presence, but he just didn't really do it for me, I think. It was just really wasn't as interesting, and it did feel like the other villains, it's not really about the villain, it's more about John Wick fighting them, but it felt like the mix of him didn't, I think, really work for the world of this film. Keanu Reeves is kind of playing in a way that, like, he's very much a physical performer, and he's very good at it. There's a time that they reference Buster Keaton in Times Square, which obviously was placed there because they don't, trust me, they don't play Buster Keaton in Times Square ever. But I have this shirt because if you can still see my shirts. And Buster Keaton was a very physical performer. Keanu Reeves is able to bring a kind of acting in a real physical kind of fighting style like he does, demands a certain acting physically that a lot of actors can't do. He can emote, he can be funny, he can, make, him reloading a gun interesting and kind of showing frustration or confidence and everything like that. And he's so good at doing that. Like, Keanu Reeves is almost the perfect actor to do something like that. And I think we're able to appreciate him more as an actor because these are all very technical, very physical things, and he does them so well, like so flawlessly. I can't think of many action heroes who can pull that off as well as Keanu does. Where this franchise goes, I sort of don't see this ever having an end and ever having a need to end. I do sort of think that these directors might have Chad Stahelski, I think that's how you say his name. I sort of feel like he should back away from this and they should get like a director who wants to have more fun with it, because it feels like he's like too entrenched and interested in this world, and I wouldn't mind a TV show to go more into that, which is I think what they're doing of the Continental, and having it more focused on John Wick again, because I love that first one. I've seen it several times. The second one, I just thought about the set pieces, and the third one, it's like it kind of felt like summer popcorn. I definitely had a good time. I thought it was a fun movie with great action movie energy to it and really got you through it, but it wasn't the kind of movie where, like the first two, where I was thrilled about the director and everything like that. They know how to shoot action and full body action in a way that very few directors do or have the confidence in doing. Like, they know how to get those stunt performers to perform all and how to shoot them, so it's just a thrill to watch them on the screen. But narratively it doesn't feel as simple, and that's like all you sort of need to think about, and you're with him as much. In this, it feels like you're not with him as much, just because I didn't remember chapter 2 going in that well, and I was kind of just going through the thrill of the action of this. I remembered he did something, but that he killed someone in the Continental, I sort of forgot. you kind of don't care as much about that, and there's not as much to latch onto in that. I think the thing Marvel's really good at is giving you a connection to that backstory, and in this, you're mainly going through the backstory for backstory's sake. Although it is a fun backstory, you're just like, there's no personal connection to it. You as an audience are more like with John Wick, and I think it would have been more fun to see that world through John Wick, like when he does that, when he goes to Halle Berry and finds like the guy above the table. Halle Berry should have been in it more, but she was wonderful in the part she was in. She was completely underutilized in a role that I thought she was like really awesome in. I would like to see him and Halle Berry team up a lot more. Also, where is Carrie-Anne Moss? I know it's obvious, but Lawrence Fishburne's already here, so like, who cares? I feel like there's still a lot of potential in the John Wick franchise. I don't think it is done. I kind of thought this was maybe, you know, how long can we stretch this, but knowing how successful this film is, I definitely see the opportunity and the potential within this film. I think John Wick continues on the potential of just well-filmed action is something that people will never really get sick of. And to be honest, if they made like 3 more at the same quality, I would still enjoy them and still have a fun time, but I don't think they would reach the heights of the first 2. And I kind of hope this franchise doesn't give up on that and have a more descending action throughout the rest of its run. I hope it kind of can leap to those kind of weirder, more stranger kind of artistic, odd set pieces than just kind of just resting on its laurels like they are now. There's a lot of potential in these films, and I don't think we ever want them squandered. I think we want to show the full potential of John Wick and show how awesome an action movie he can be, how he can continue keep fighting, and the physicality of the whole thing is a thrill that modern audiences have loved, and I think John Wick Chapter 3 gives you that love again. It's just in a very sugar-coated, popcorn, almost forgettable in an hour later, but an awesome time nonetheless in an action movie. So if you have seen John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. And this is kind of a funny thing. Turns out I sort of was inadvertently at the premiere of John Wick Chapter 3. I have footage from it because I thought it was kind of weird. I thought it was like a radio thing, but according to the Wikipedia, that's where I was on May 9th seeing Detective Pikachu. I thought about sneaking in because it was playing actually in a lot of theaters. It was a multiplex, so it was playing in a bunch of the theaters there, not all of them, because I could see Detective Pikachu. I did not see Keanu Reeves. I did not see anyone famous. I just saw like the footage that I have there. But yeah, apparently I was sort of in the same building as the John Wick Chapter 3 premiere, and then I saw it at that theater. So I saw John Wick Chapter 3 at the same theater where it premiered, which is kind of cool, I guess. So I just thought I would share that because I just found that out right before filming this review. So there you go. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.